been deployed in part of Bangladesh where the backlash over war crimes trials had resulted in more violent unrest. The soldiers have taken up positions in the northern district of Bogra. 5 people were killed there when angry mobs attacked police stations. At least 20 people have died in violence across the country on Sunday. Riots erupted on Thursday after an opposition leader was sentenced to death for war crimes. Jane Ferguson reports.
Violence and anger in Bangladesh has become a daily norm now. The first day of a 48-hour strike across the country follows several days of protests. These people are supporters of the Jamaat-e-Islami party. A senior member of that party was sentenced to death last week for war crimes. Delwar Hussain Saidy was found guilty of crimes against humanity during the country's 1971 War of Independence with Pakistan. The charges include rape and murder, all of which he and his supporters deny.
Allama Saidy is a pure man. He don't have any guilty. He is totally pure. And this government is trying to kill him with a judiciary power.
Riot police have been deployed in the capital Dhaka for days, and there have been deaths and many arrests during the protests. Life for most Bangladeshis is difficult. Poverty levels are high, and any interference in their daily routine makes things worse.
My problem is I sell newspapers on the streets, and without customers, how am I going to make a living? It's difficult for us to get to work on time. For those of us at school and have exams, all of their classes are cancelled. This general strike is a real problem for most of us.
Jamaat-e-Islami is the largest Islamic party in Bangladesh, and it says the War Crimes Tribunal is targeting its leadership unfairly. The government set up the tribunal in 2010 to address the atrocities of the civil war which pitted Bangladeshi nationalists against Pakistan. But some accuse the tribunal of being politically motivated because they say most of those on trial are opposition members. With 7 more Jamaat-e-Islami leaders to be sentenced, anger among their supporters could pour out onto these streets for some time. Jane Ferguson, Al Jazeera.
Well, we can hear now from our reporter in the Bangladeshi capital. We're not naming him for security reasons, but bring us up to date with what's happening now.
Now that death toll on Sunday has risen to 23, and with the deaths of those over the last 72 hours since Thursday's verdict, we're looking at death toll in excess of 60 people across the country. Most of those disturbances, as we've mentioned on Sunday, have occurred in the north of the country, north of Dhaka in Bogra, as we mentioned in that report. 2 platoons of military personnel have been deployed. It's the first time that the military have been deployed to the streets of Bangladesh since the border guard mutiny of February 2009. They were deployed in Bogra because of 4 police stations coming under attack. But in other areas of the country where we have reports of 4 dead, in Rajashahi, where 1 child and a woman have been killed, and the arterial road routes between Dhaka to the north and Dhaka to the south, the major city of Chittagong, have been blocked and highways and transport routes disrupted.
So we'll leave it there. Many thanks for joining us. These protests are rooted in a conflict of cultures that goes back decades. Back in 1947, modern Bangladesh was under Pakistani rule and was known as East Pakistan. The calls for independence grew, and in 1971, war with Pakistan broke out. What followed has been disputed by both sides, but Jamaat-e-Islami is accused of siding with Pakistan. Bangladesh's government says 3 million people were killed in a conflict lasting 9 months, many at the hands of the militia groups who wanted to remain under Pakistan. Thousands of women were raped. Some academics say it was the first time rape was used as a weapon of war. Jamaat-e-Islami denies they took part in any of the atrocities. Joining me now is Jane Ferguson, who recently returned from Dhaka. Jane, tell us more about this tribunal.
The tribunal was set up in 2010 by the current government, who are led by the Awami League party. And it's really just in January of this year that they've started actually sentencing those accused of war crimes. And the sentences of death have, as you've seen in the images that we've seen on the streets, been responded to with absolute anger by those who support the parties that those accused are part of. But really the Awami League and their supporters in the cities say this is really about justice for the crimes that you just mentioned there during the war. And essentially it was a big part of their election campaign before they came to power. Now they're up for re-election soon, and they're likely to want to see this trial continue before they have to stand for re-election. And there are many more people to be sentenced. So these kinds of events in the city and beyond are likely to continue.
And the significance of the army being deployed?
It is significant. Of course, Bangladesh has seen military coups over the years, so people there will be very sensitive to that having happened. So far, it seems to have just been in a few isolated incidents, and it's not anything that's being seen as a coup or as the army broadly present in the streets. But of course, it is symbolic in itself that the army should be pulled out. And if violence like this continues in the few days ahead, and if the government are likely to need the army again to really restore any kind of calm to the streets, then that's going to continue to add to speculation.
Jane Ferguson, thank you.